of the applications, please indicate so that you will be given that opportunity to do so. The first, I'd like to start off by introducing the staff. To my left over here is Crystal Way, and Glenn Rowe, and Olivia Hall is our new environmental and compliance officer, and Bill Jarrell, he's in the commission part of the process. To my left here is Will Tolles, and Bruce Julian, Hap Had, Andy Ransom, and I'm Evelyn Revere. With that said, I'm going to call our first application. Patrick Mason. Is someone here to represent him, please? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so used, you'll have to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Mike Johnson, Virginia Marine Resources
Mike
Commission.
Johnson?
Yeah, Jay's on vacation this week. So.
Okay.
Yes, we know.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to leave you out.
That's okay.
I'm Drew Ransom with Ransom's Nursery.
Okay, I'd like to read the ad. Patrick W. Mason, care Andrew T. Ransom, P.O. Box 1237, Kilmarnock, is requesting permission to install 84 linear feet of riprap revetment along the shoreline of the Currituck River, located off Virginia State Highway 1070, Currituck Drive on East Highview Drive, tax map number 20D 2474, VMRC number 22-1277. Go ahead.
So we're proposing to do this 84-foot revetment because the house is built close to the shoreline. It's actually probably in the 50-foot buffer with a retaining wall around a pool, and there's a lot of wash upland, but there's also some undercut on the steep hill or steep bank. So we're looking to shore up that bank so that we can continue other projects going up the hill to try and alleviate some of the erosion that the client is having.
Anyone on the board?
You want us first or the staff first?
I didn't know if anyone had anything they'd like to ask before we ask Hannah if she has something to say.
No, I don't have anything yet.
Hannah,
Oh, I don't have any comments.
no comment on this one. Okay, Wetland Board. Bill? Sorry. Nothing from, our staff.
VMRC?
Yes, sir. Mr. Johnson, did you have anything you'd like to add to this application?
No, we don't.
Anyone in the audience wish to speak to this application? Okay, Wetland Board? If there's no concern,
I have a question.
okay.
According to, in the package here, the land disturbance permit has been issued. Is that correct?
I don't believe, no.
No, I included it in the whole packet, the landscape agreement signed. So if we had to do mitigation, that was all set up, but we haven't done any land disturbance permits yet.
So the permit's not been issued, that's why it's all blank.
Yeah, I just had him sign that so that when it came to it, we would, whatever we had to
Okay.
mitigate forward.
Couple questions. On Tuesday, Drew, we were there, and they're not page numbered, but your cross-section A indicates 2-to-1 slopes on the rock, yet the drawing indicates 1-to-1.
It should be a 1-to-1, it should not be a 2-to-1, that was just a mistype on the, it's a pretty steep bank, so it's gonna probably have to be a 1-to-1.
Okay. There's a comment here from MRC about a proposed boathouse.
I asked about that, and I think that was a mess up. I don't know why that came through on that letter. We have not proposed a boathouse at all.
So that's incorrect.
Yes, that's incorrect. And I emailed Jay about that also.
Okay. One of the things that we had brief discussion on Tuesday was the treatment on the adjacent landowner there with offshore breakwaters and the sand that's filled in, and how well that's actually doing. And I'm concerned, this is particularly directed to VMRC, that with the 2020 General Assembly amendments that read, the commission shall only permit living shoreline approaches to shoreline management unless best available science shows such approaches are not suitable. If the best available science shows the living shoreline approach is not suitable, the commission shall require the applicant to incorporate to the maximum extent possible elements of living shoreline approaches into permitted projects. So my question is, we have living proof that living shoreline elements right on the adjacent property, in fact, are functioning great with grass. And to me, I don't see why we're not duplicating that same minor treatment on this project.
So the living shoreline is not gonna hold that bank back.
No, in addition to what you proposed.
So you're proposing to add the living shoreline to what I already have?
I'm not proposing anything. I've got to comply with code. This board has to comply with code. So obviously the fetch is not I don't see a scientific reason why those elements per Virginia code can't be incorporated.
All right, so I haven't been on site, but I see photos that Jay has taken. I do see a couple of sill structures. It looks like one on either side of the pier for the neighbor to the right, when you're looking at the shoreline.
Correct.
But there is a revetment also.
Both. There's both.
There's both there.
There's
Yeah,
both.
So,
My question is, why can't those elements be incorporated?
Because it's an additional $40,000 added to the project for my client that I don't think is necessary for them to have to pay if they're just trying to shore up and make sure their house doesn't fall into the water.
So that's not my argument here. Mike, can we deny something based on cost?
it certainly can be a factor in trying to decide whether a shoreline erosion control structure is appropriate or not. I mean, we've seen people in the past say they couldn't afford to put in a living shoreline. I'll just say that, you know, the revetment there is protecting the shoreline.
Make sure you use the mic, Mike.
Oh, I'm sorry. The revetment I see there in the shoreline, you know, is protecting the shoreline. The sill that's offshore, you know, right now, all I can tell is helping to facilitate some grass growth in front of that revetment. So the question of the sill, you know, the sill protecting the shoreline, I don't think is, you know, necessarily true unless it's protecting the toe there, and, you know, to keep the riprap from failing, you know, from erosion from in front. But certainly, you've got a lot of overgrowth there along the river that you should be considering in the application. I don't know if this is a west-facing, south-facing, you know, which way this shoreline's facing. I have to go back and maybe look at the drawings a little bit, but, you know, these are all certain things you should be taking into consideration for any application. It's a case-by-case basis. So.
Understand. The grass seems to like
Yeah, the grass, you know,
the aggregation.
once you get offshore ways with the sill, there's some grass growing there. I see that. So,
Well, my sympathy with the landowner. Is this the landowner back here? Yeah. Okay. This is a very challenging site. You and I talked about it with surface water flow, escarpment. So I don't have any issues with what you're proposing, Drew. I just am concerned about this requirement by the General Assembly that living shoreline elements be incorporated unless there's a scientific reason.
I would say that, you know, for a living shoreline to be incorporated, the main thing is it going to contribute to the success of the erosion control structure, you know, to controlling erosion. In this situation where they're putting a revetment in, I'm not sure that's fulfilling that.
So you would.
I can't influence your decision.
No, I'm just going to ask a question.
Yeah, I just can provide you some scientific advice here.
So from what you see here, this is in compliance with Code of Virginia.
I'd say that, you know, as long as you discuss, you know, the fact that you don't think a living shoreline is appropriate here for costs or for protecting the shoreline because you've got a lot of overgrowth, you've got bulkhead on one side, you've got revetment on the other. You know, certainly if you're trying to, you know, to tie in those, you know, those different things, those are factors you can consider in making your decisions.
Understand. No, so you have no other comments?
No, I can't influence your, I can't sit here and say, you know, this is.
I'm just
yeah, I can't
asking.
influence you, but certainly, just in your discussions with the living shoreline here, I think, you know, it is the living shoreline part of the erosion control structure. At that neighbor's property, it doesn't appear that it is to me. It's helping grow some grass in front of the revetment, which is great, but it's not actually helping to protect the neighbor's property.
Thank you.
Anyone else have anything? Y'all have any comments?
No, ma'am.
No.
Okay, if all, if everything is kosher, I'll entertain a motion.
Move the project be approved as it's presented.
I'll second.
All in favor, signify. 5-0. Okay. Okay, the next on our agenda is Karen and John Loper. Someone here representing this.
He's on the Zoom.
Is he on this?
He's on remotely.
Hello? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, hi, Joe.
Yeah, it's Joey Scott, P.O. Box 315, Kilmarnock, Virginia 22482. I'm the agent for the applicant.
I'm gonna read the ad where John and Karen Loper are requesting, through you, a permit, request permission to remove 5 existing failing timber groins and replace with 215 feet of, with low-profile timber groins with riprap flank protection / connection along the shoreline of the Chesapeake Bay, located off Virginia State Highway 695, Windmill Point Road on Baywater Drive, tax map numbers, 41A, 1A, 1A, 41A, 1B, 1A, 41A, 1B2A, 412, and the VRC number is 22/1567. Go ahead.
Yeah, so they're just going to replace the 5 existing groins down there that have been destroyed over time from just age and also the exposure there. And the main changes are the groin that's on the lot that connects to the larger upland parcel is going to be located so that they're all kind of properly spaced. They're about 48 feet offshore, so they need about 90 feet between them. I guess the portion that's really only going to be in y'all's jurisdiction is the rock. Because there's already armor stone on the shore, they're going to have to connect the groins into the existing armor stone. So there will be a section of rock at the landward end of each of the groins to connect them into the existing armor stone. And I guess if you guys have any questions for me.
Olivia, do you have something you'd like to add to this? You, Brian?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Johnson, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, I don't.
Okay, the board, it's open it up to you all.
I'd just like to compliment Joey on the 4 landowners getting together for a more comprehensive project instead of doing this piecemeal one by one. So the only thing I expressed Tuesday to you was it's regrettable that the materials we're saddled with today are probably only going to last 20 years with the wood and the pressure treating we're getting. But the tie-in maybe we should be able to start accumulating some sand. So I just want to commend the landowners on that. Thank you.
Oh. Is anyone in the audience who would like to speak to this? Anyone else on the board?
Are there any problems with pulling out the old groins?
Is that for Joey?
Joey,
Yes.
is there any,
So typically, they would try to remove them, but you never know what you're going to get. So a lot of times what happens is one of two things. If they're able to remove them, terrific. If they aren't, then most of the time they're broken off right at the substrate line, at the height of the sand underneath, and then they'll just go in right directly adjacent to them where they can drive them in. So it really depends on how well constructed, they were the first time. So that's why I usually don't, I try to, show that they're going to be placed next to the old ones and then pull out as much of the old ones or at least break them off as much as they can. So
I presume those old ones are creosote treated?
they look to be, that stretch of shoreline has had a lot of groins on it for a long, long time. So they probably predate my existence.
Mike, do you have are there any MRC concerns or recommendations on dealing with creosote-treated lumber?
Typically, creosote does release what they call polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, which are toxic. That's why the wood stays so long. Nothing can grow in the wood because it's toxic. So, removal is always the best option. But, certainly when they're old and starting to rot, you can't sometimes get down into the sediment. So burial underneath the sediment, it will help trap everything, and not allow more release into the system. But certainly, if you can remove them, you probably should.
And are there guidelines on disposal?
That depends on your local upland disposal sites. Your landfills, whether or not they accept creosote treated lumber. But there are facilities around that will accept it. You just might have to do some legwork to find those facilities.
So Joey, assuming that those can come out, will the disposal occur on approved sites?
Yes, so this job is for Docks of Bay contractor, and they've removed tons of this kind of stuff for lots of different folks. So they have a site that they've used in the past that they can use. So
Okay, thank you.
well, if you can't take out everything, you're leaving some wood in there that might be toxic? Is that right? Is it better just to leave it as it is, as opposed to?
Excuse me. Bill, do you have something?
Yeah, I'm new to this, but where does this affect the Wetlands Board? That's my question.
I can't hear you.
Where does this affect the Wetlands Board? This is in VMRC's jurisdiction, am
Oh,
I
yeah.
correct?
why the questions are.
Yeah, certainly it's tying into the revetment, so there is a small portion that's going to be in your jurisdiction, but he's correct. 90% of these structures are in VMRC.
Understood.
Well, we getting into the VMRC part of it now. We need to get back to the wetland part.
Only the portion that's
agreed.
in the wetlands.
Oh, yeah, only the portion in the wetlands and not what the VMRC is gonna tell them to do. Is there any further, questions on this or concerns? Is it? Motion, please. I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion that the Wetlands Board approve the submission as presented?
A second.
Approve as presented. Is that it?
Andy seconded.
Okay. All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, and next on our agenda is, James Lofton, care of Joey Scott. Go ahead, Joey.
Yeah, so Joseph Scott, P.O. Box 315, Kilmarnock, Virginia 22482. So on this particular one, we
Joey?
were,
I don't mean to cut you off, but I was gonna read the ad.
okay,
But I want to
sounds
make
good.
sure you online. James Lofton, care of Joseph Scott, is requesting permission to repair and increase height of existing 180 feet of riprap revetment along the shoreline of the Rappahannock River located off Virginia State Highway 666 Benson Road on Cedar Point Drive, tax map number 32A-1-7, DMRC number 22-1625. Go ahead. Go ahead, Joey.
Okay. So this is basically adding rock to the top of an existing structure and also trying to straighten and clean it up a little bit. It's down there in Weems at a subdivision that's probably been there since the early 90s, and I'm pretty sure that this rock was put in that stretch right there where we were at on Tuesday were some of the oldest houses down there. So it's been there for quite a while. And just like a lot of other stuff on the Rappahannock River, it's gotten kind of beat up over the last 2 winters. So he wanted to add stone to the top of it. And at that particular time, Olivia was just coming on board at the county. So I came to her and Bill and see, what they wanted us to do in terms of, did it just need a WQIA or did it just need a land disturbing permit or whatever? And they just suggested until kind of Olivia gets used to how she wants to handle things, just go ahead and put a JPA in for it. So that's what we did. It's going to be done from the top of the bank with a long arm excavator, and there really shouldn't be a whole lot of, there's going to be land disturbance at the top of the rock in order to install it, but they're not going to grade the bank or anything like that. It's just going to be repairing what's there. Well, and adding stone to the top of it. So if you guys have any questions that I might be able to answer.
Olivia?
I have no comments.
Bill?
No, ma'am.
Mike?
Is that vegetated wetlands growing out from the rock right now?
Are you asking me?
Yeah. Or
So
county,
there
or county.
are some deposits of patents at the top part of the rock and portions of the rock. And historically speaking, when I've encountered stuff like that, it's been, 2 things have been brought up regarding it. One is that even if they're patents, are they out of the Wetlands Board jurisdiction? Because if it's not a beach or a dune and it's above 1.5 times the tide range, then it's not on the board's jurisdiction. Or in some situations where I've actually seen them growing in the whalers of a bulkhead. One time, I guess it was probably 2 or 3 years ago, they had VIMS look at it, and Lyle gave them the classification of calling them functionally depressed. Basically, I guess meaning that the continuity had been broken and that they weren't really considered to be, wetlands of any sort in terms of square footage. There were just small amounts. So I guess it's kind of like grass growing in a parking lot. Is it really a lawn? Is it really serving a whole lot of function? I don't know. But there is a section next to the dock. It's probably less than a square foot total that has a little bit of patents growing in the very top well, a little higher than halfway up and to the top of the rock. So, and they may be able to keep that there. They may not have to mess with that, depending on what the cloth looks like once they start pulling the top of the rock off. If the cloth is all screwed up, then obviously they'll have to pull the rock out to put more cloth in to make sure it's done correctly, because the cloth does all the work, so.
Yeah, well, so, the cloth is not, is allowing the roots to grow through it, but, so you're saying it's probably above 1.5 times then?
I mean, that was my feeling, because it's not a dune behind it. It's not a beach. It's a 15-foot tall bank. At the time I felt like they're probably, even though they're patent, they're probably not jurisdictional, but I don't get to make that decision, so.
Okay. Yeah. I guess that's a question for staff here then. Did they feel that it was above 1.5 times? If outside the board jurisdiction doesn't require mitigation?
I said it because I wasn't clear on whether it was truly, and I wanted the board to look at it.
So, I guess, you could approve the impacts of the vegetated wetlands pending, some sort of verification that it's outside the board's jurisdiction. And I guess that would be up to Jay and staff to determine that, because I have not been on site. But certainly in this, even though you say that it's damaged, if it is within the board's jurisdiction, you're saying it might be quote-unquote damaged goods, but still we have a no net loss in the state. So if the work is going to result in the loss of vegetated wetlands in the board's jurisdiction, that has to be mitigated for either through in lieu fee or on-site mitigation. In this case, I can't see where you can do on-site mitigation. So do you have an in lieu fee here?
Not to my.
No? Oh, do you have is there a mitigation bank? Is there
No.
there is no mitigation bank? Okay. So how do you mitigate for the loss of vegetated wetlands here?
On-site mitigation?
On-site mitigation only? Okay. Well, I think, short of, not having determined whether or not that's in the board's jurisdiction, I don't know where, if this board can approve the project, without a determination of whether or not that grass is in the board's jurisdiction or not. And Jay didn't talk to you about this at all at the staff level?
No.
Well, no, we had conversations with Jay,
Okay,
but
and
again.
he said it was outside the board's jurisdiction?
Yeah, we're new
Okay.
to this and
Okay,
felt,
all right. Well, if Jay says outside the board's jurisdiction, then I guess we can go with that.
And that's what he said? Is Jay on record for that? Oh, Bill?
I can't speak on that. No.
Well, let's see. Jay's made the determination it's outside VMRC's jurisdiction, correct?
Yes, everything is above mean low water according to the drawings, and Jay did submit a no permit necessary letter back on, it's like July 19th.
And he was there on August the 3rd to take these photographs.
Yeah, so I'm assuming, I don't see any notes in the file, so I'm assuming he's saying that the grass is outside the board's jurisdiction, but again.
When he has an opinion, it's usually not concealed.
Okay, all right, so I guess we'll just work with the assumption that the grass is outside the board's jurisdiction then.
Thank you, Mike. I'm sure staff, that had there been some question about this, Mr. Woodward would have
Oh, yes, sir.
articulated his schooling of us.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that
Wait
the,
just a minute. Is anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this? Okay, go ahead with your motion.
I make a motion that the application be approved as submitted.
I will second that.
All in favor? Okay,
Thank you.
well, thank you. Okay. Now, next one is Philip Stoddard, here, Roger McKenna.
Roger McKinley, 691 Mill Point Drive, Eastville, Virginia. I'm here to speak for Mr. Spotswood. This is a two-part project. There is an existing riprap revetment. Edna, do you want to read the
Yes,
ad?
please. Philip Spotswood and care of Roger McKinley is requesting permission to install 28 linear feet of riprap revetment and a 22 linear feet of rock sill along the shoreline of Miles Creek located off Virginia State Highway 668, Miles Creek Road on Purdom Lane, tax map number 26-125A, VMRC number 22-1658. Go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. Existing riprap revetment along the northern shoreline of this property, about 28 feet short of actually coming around the corner to where that little beach area is. So we're proposing to extend the existing riprap revetment around the corner until we get to that open space. And then from there, there's a riprap sill that's channelward of the existing vegetation that's located there. So we have kind of a living shoreline, half of it, and the riprap revetment, which will be on that wooded shoreline, which really wasn't very adaptable to a living shoreline approach at that area. So that's what we're proposing, and I'll answer any questions you all have.
Olivia?
I have a question.
Not necessarily a question, just what staff is gonna, we're not Brian anymore. Just when you're filling these JPAs out, county staff is gonna expect, and it's not just you, I'm just letting you know because you're before us right now. Conventional revetment, that we're gonna want a little more elaboration on some of the questions, okay? Suitable application, explain.
There's an existing
No,
revetment there.
yeah, no, I'm just, in general, for future applications, just a little more
Oh, I see.
explanation
Okay,
to the
I
question.
understand. You're not asking
Yeah.
specifically
Yep,
about that.
yes, sir.
I understand.
Other than that, I'm no.
Anyone on board? Mike?
Are you doing fill behind this hill?
No, there's already existing marsh grass
Okay.
there.
Oh, there is, okay, because your cross-section shows sand fill landward of the.
I don't think that's going to be necessary.
Anyone else?
I've got a couple of questions, Roger.
Yes, sir.
I want to or I guess, tag on to what Bill just said. This, I guess it's almost the last page. But, you know, this board has had policy for 25 years. And what a complete application is, policy memorandum 57. And the, pardon me, the cross-section where you say this is a typical rock sill, and it's usually designed for, and it's usually smaller than, and it's usually class 1, and it's usually 1.5 to 1, is not a plan for this site. This cross-section could be a plan for any site.
But I have this-
And that's, excuse me, let me finish,
Go ahead,
please.
I'm sorry.
And that I would consider, that along with a couple more questions I have here, that I don't understand the two-part part. I mean, this is, how many times has this property owner come to this board with applications?
How's that relevant?
It appears, when we talk to them, that their goal is just to rock the whole property incrementally.
I don't think so. I'm hoping this will be the last project that we do for Mr. Spotswood, but he owns an extensive amount of waterfront there with that peninsula that he has. We've already taken care of the southern side up in that cove. That's been riprap, but I don't foresee anything else there, but that's not up to me to decide. That's up to the homeowner to make that decision. And as far as I know, he has the right to apply as many times as he likes to do what appears to be something that's important to him at the time.
Certainly,
Because
certainly. I
things
agree with that.
change, environments change.
I
So-
certainly agree that from the existing revetment rock down to that kind of old brick sock, there is extensive erosion that needs to be controlled.
Yes.
I see no resource concern beyond that point. It is stable. There's no active erosion. The only thing that I think could really improve that natural wetland is limbing up some trees there to get some more shade on that grass. And right out about less than 100 yards is a spit that protects this area from erosion. And so I don't see any resource concern beyond that brick walk.
It's not really in your jurisdiction. It's channelward of mean low water.
The whole side?
No, the sill. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, you don't need to tell us about our jurisdiction.
Okay, well, you were questioning the sill, and I don't see where that's pertinent to what we're talking about.
Okay. On page 18, you talk about sand placement of your application.
I
And you
have
don't,
that part of the application with me. It's in my
Cross
folder.
section?
page 18,
Let me go get it.
you talk, well, you can read your own statement.
I'm not sure exactly what's going on in that respect.
The state.
I don't see where that requires any beach nourishment at all. If it's out channelward of mean low water, and there's an existing vegetated area there that we're trying to protect.
Do you see the statement? Where it says, "There is some natural vegetation near the proposed sill. It is hoped that with the sand fill, it will generate new growth."
Apparently, there's some defects that are there behind the sill, landward of the sill, that maybe we talked about filling in while we were there doing a site inspection. Because sometimes the elevation is wrong for grass to establish itself. So by bringing in the sand fill, you bring it up to a suitable elevation where it can regenerate
I
itself.
understand that. So
Okay.
is there not sand fill?
I would say no. And I'd be glad to revise the application to take that out.
Well, it's puzzling because you say there's going to be sand fill, but then there's no volume.
Did you see the application of the appendix for beach nourishment?
I did.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I see.
I know, so just make sure you
Yeah,
saw it.
I think that's an error.
Okay.
Don't forget the mic. We got a person taking minutes here.
I'm sorry, I was just making sure he saw where he put it down in the appendix for beach nourishment, that's all.
No more comments.
What's that? You said the one in the audience wished to speak to this? Anyone else have any concerns? Not, I'll entertain a motion. Do you feel that he needs to do a revision?
My concerns, he's addressed my concerns.
Oh, okay, but I'm saying, well, if no one else has any concerns, do I hear a motion on this application?
I propose that the board approve the application as submitted.
All in favor, signify by saying aye. I mean, by raising your
Need a
right
second,
hand.
need a second. Who seconded?
Who seconded? Andy? Are you, who's, Andy second, and all in favor, raise your right hand. Hap, did you raise your hand in favor?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Updates on prior violations. Do you guys have anything you need to tell us?
In the last meeting minutes, I think Bruce asked for an update on Flamia and the marina at Woodman Point. The update on Flamia, I was told that the home is currently for sale.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
The update on Flamia, I was told the home is currently for sale. I went out and took some pictures, and I can send those to you after the meeting. While I was there, it looked stable. And then the update on Marina.
What, excuse me, question on that. So that violation is where with the county attorney? County attorney still has that?
If it hadn't been resolved, the last thing, to my knowledge, was it, the board turned this over to the circuit court. Am I correct, gentlemen?
I don't know, that's why I asked for an update,
Yes.
that.
The
Right.
court turned
It-
this over to the circuit court, which then I think, I don't know, seems like lawyers were working on the situation. And that's as far as I go or know.
And I think that was the update that it's for sale. And so they felt like if there was something, an action taken, like. a
I don't see
fine or
how that has,
something,
I don't see the property being for sale has any relevance.
Is this guy gonna get fined?
What we have here is a violation,
Yeah.
and we have to deal with that and resolve it.
Right, and so they-
Regardless of who buys it.
Sure. And when I asked the question, the answer was that the reason they brought up it being for sale is that if they find them, they didn't feel like they would be able to recover that, money.
That's not,
Who said that?
excuse me,
I'm just telling you what, I spoke with, Don Gill about it, and he told me that that's what the update was.
but the thing of it is, we still have a violation before us, and we have to deal with that, is my understanding. Now, I don't know what y'all's, what do you feel?
I would like a written response from the county attorney. I mean, if it's been 2 years
And
messing with,
nothing-
and so I'd like a written response from the county attorney, and the violation's probably gonna go with a new owner. So I see that the property's got a for sale sign on it, there's no relevance to the violation. So I'd like a complete report. Has it been dismissed? What's the court done with it? Is it still pending?
Well, see, when we dismissed it, or not dismissed it, but turned it over to the civil court, it was my understanding then, the board's out. It's in the hands of the court.
I understand
It's
that.
up to the court to deal with it, and so far, it's the same now it was day one.
I've had no communication that it left the county attorney and went to court.
That's what.
I don't know that.
None of us know anything as far as.
Well, that's what we're
I know.
trying to find out.
That's right. And we continue to be asked what's going on by the people that live in Maratica.
Who reported the violation to begin with?
Yeah.
You know, this was a discharge, both impacting areas of our jurisdiction as well as the Clean Water Act, as well as VMRC. And so, you know, it would be good to know what, has it been
We
forgotten,
need
disposed of, or
something in
whatever?
writing clarifying this. Do we do a civil charge on this, or has the courts dismissed it? It's my understanding. I don't know about how y'all feel.
So you
We need
refer-
it in writing.
So you referred it to your county attorney for prosecution?
Yes.
So you need to find out what your attorney has done. Because it's out of your hands now if you referred it to them.
Correct.
Well, see, this is what I just said.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to understand.
When the Wetland Board turns this over to the court, the
So-
Circuit
so-
Court of Lancaster County, our hands were out of it. They would go deal with it, and they would tell us what was what.
Yeah,
And
so
we
you,
haven't heard
so
nothing
you
from day one.
tried on your end to get the person who has the violation to comply with your orders
need
and your
something
requests.
in
They
writing.
didn't comply, and so then you turned it over to the county attorney at that point.
Yeah, we tried.
You tried yourself.
Months of multiple, to get the person to show up,
Yeah.
to meet with them on site. We have a whole record of our attempts.
And if, you know, and unfortunately, everything that y'all handle is voluntary. If he doesn't voluntarily deal with you, then he has to be turned over to the courts, and that's what y'all have done. So I would probably try and follow up with your county attorney to find where things
Well,
stand.
could we ask staff to actually submit something to the,
Well, that-
a question?
Hannah would be, she's our environmental and.
Olivia,
compliance officer.
Olivia.
I mean, Olivia. But she is the one that will do the corresponding
Sure.
Yeah.
with whomever she has, the county attorney or judge or whoever. But just long as this board can resolve this and get it out of our hair, whichever we need to do, I feel we can do, but we just need to know which step to take first. And the county attorney or the courts has got to advise us, because it's in their hands, not ours.
And we need something in writing so that it can go in the
This is what
minutes.
I'm saying.
In the minutes.
But Hannah, we should, the board should ask her again to, well, not again, but ask her to follow up on this, you know, with the attorneys or whomever she has to. You don't want to put something in somebody's lap, but our hands are tied. I mean, we in the court's hands.
She could give us a report, the status
Well,
of the process.
don't worry, Hannah can get it.
No, Olivia?
Olivia.
I
Olivia.
mean, Olivia can get it.
All right.
She can get it if she
Okay.
wants to get it, because I'll back all the way. If I ever go to the judge, I'll go to the judge,
Okay, I'll work on that.
okay?
And the second one?
The second update was for the marina at Windmill Point. The county is working with the with the marina on a plan that will mitigate the issue that was discussed in that past meeting and provide for more public access.
But that's still, where's the violation there? Where does that fall?
The new plan will mitigate the violation, the issue with the violation. I guess the issue that the violation was addressing will be addressed in the
We
in the
need
plan.
something in writing, so we can get straight on what we're doing with these violations. It's been going on over 2 years. And it's this one will do this, and that one will do that, but I haven't seen anything in black and white in writing that says anything. And the last time I was there, which was a long time ago, there was a septic tank sitting on the beach.
I will get you something in writing.
But the thing of it is, we need to resolve these. You can't keep them going. We need to know one way or the other. Is the court going to dismiss them? Well, if that be the case, that's the case. As long as we have it that says you have nothing else to do with it.
So Olivia, you're going to provide
She's
us with
gonna
a
take
status
care of all
report
that.
on both of these
She's going to take
issues?
care of it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
If you need any help, Olivia, let us know. I'm sure every member on this board will back you and go with you wherever you need to go. According with the judge. I'll go see the judge. But seriously, I mean, there's no sense us keep going over and over, and nothing's being done. He's doing what he wants. Okay? Is that resolved? Well, the next on the agenda, is that all of the, updates and everything on the, okay. The next on the agenda is new business, and we have a request for permit extension. Daniel Long Landfall Field Trust, DMRC number 19-0908. Is someone here representing him?
Yes, ma'am. Pleases the board, I'm John Brooks with Groundwater Environmental Services, Chesterfield, Virginia. We're here for a simple reissuance of this permit. We were not able to use the permit due to COVID. A lot of things, transpired during COVID, and we weren't able to complete the project, and now we are able to do that.
I guess my question is, it seems like everything, if you sit down to watch the news, it's, we couldn't do this because of COVID. And I'm sure, and I know there are regulations that you can and cannot do. But with the COVID, it didn't restrict contractors from building homes and building roads and whatever else they wanted to build, because they're outside. So, I'm going to ask Livia to speak to this.
Okay, it's my understanding that based on information provided by the county attorney, that the Wetlands Board can deny Mr. Lang's request for an extension based on failure to act under the prior approved permit. In an email, this is a separate point, in an email dated March 11th, 2019 to Nancy Hankins, who's now Nancy Davis with the Army Corps of Engineers, Jennifer Stanhope with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service stated the following: there are MBTB, which are tiger beetles, on the beach in this area, that they shouldn't be in the marsh or behind the dunes. As long as the project doesn't impact the dunes or the beach, and that there is no equipment or vehicles on the beach/dunes, I would not be concerned. End quote. And in our site visit, we saw evidence of tire tracks on the beach and dunes, but did not see mats. And so my question would be, are the mats in place?
I don't believe the mats are in place.
Okay.
I think if there are tire tracks there, it's probably some other people coming onto the property.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sorry.
State your name for the record, please.
Daniel Lang, 4186 Windmill Point Road, Whitestone, Virginia. I'm the applicant. My company is Landfall Trust, LLC. Specifically, the site visit that you had occurred at the same time that we were doing clearing. The grass was being mowed on the lots, and I personally entered onto that portion of the beach intending to check out the utility pole that is located there that we had installed. And at the point where I was attempting to back out because of the erosion that had happened from the recent storms, I was forced with nothing else to do but to continue to drive forward. I couldn't back out, which is why when I got onto that area that had eroded, the soils were such, they were so light that they created a problem. I then ended up simply going out and exiting. That is something I did a couple of days ago. But what I want to stress is that I also have had much worse occasions of people going onto the beach without permission, ignoring signs. Those were reported to the Lancaster Sheriff's Department. They were reported to Brian Barnes in the past. They were examined, they were noted. Police actually visited over the course of some time to see if that could be prevented in some fashion. And what I undertook to do then was to install a series of pressure-treated posts, which separates the 25-foot right-of-way, which runs east into the bay, from that 50-foot right-of-way where you would have seen the tracks and where the mats were located. So I'd also like, if I may, or you have questions on this so far, I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah, so you made a comment that the tracks were from you cutting grass?
No, I said that I was there in the presence of my contractors who were cutting the grass, and I was in the process of just driving down to where the utility pole was located, and because of the shifting sand, was not able to back out. It just, I would have dug in, I would have gotten stuck there. Instead of doing that, I moved forward towards the gate or the silt fence area, and then very slowly, very carefully, did a 360 to be able to drive back out.
All right, Olivia and I made a site visit unannounced, and those tracks were there as well prior to any Wetlands Board.
They occurred the day
Schedule.
before. This occurred on Tuesday.
Yeah, we were there before that.
Well, those tracks could not.
Oh, yes, sir, they were. We have pictures.
Well, I'd like to see them because I had well, again, the only tracks that I witnessed on Tuesday were the ones that I created.
Understood.
And as far as I know, no one else has been on that property. Certainly if they were trespassing, they were going through a gate that has a lock on it. There you go. Those are my tracks.
This was on Monday.
Well, okay, let me apologize then. Today is Thursday.
Thursday. Yes, sir.
My grass was cut on Monday.
No, sir, not when we were there. We walked through grass over knee high, sir.
All right, let me be very clear because you're suggesting I'm not telling the truth on something. All right, let me give you the.
I'm giving you
excuse-
facts, sir.
Okay, I'll give you facts.
Okay.
I'll give you facts. I arrived at the location in the morning with some gentlemen who were going to look at the site to mow it. We left the site. At that period, there was no mowing activity happening yet. We went to another location to get them to look at that. That point, they said, we might be able to come back in the afternoon and do it. And I said, fine, if you can, I'll even give you a little bit of extra compensation because I wanted to get it cleaned up because I had people coming down to look at the site. That afternoon, and I don't know exactly when, they went in, but it was the same day. So if it was Monday, I misstated that it was Tuesday. It was Monday. We went to the site. They followed me in behind me. I went too far in, couldn't get out. Didn't want to have to go back and get an excavator or something to pull my truck out. Simply went out, made these tracks, and you can see these tracks actually started to slope down towards the beach. I couldn't get myself out. Back up, if you know anything about pickup trucks, they're very light in the back end. Engine's heavier, it's a four-wheel drive. I simply got myself turned around and got out. Now, this occurred all on the same day. Those are my tracks. No one else's.
I'll stop you there. It's up to the Wetlands Board. You guys can continue with your evaluation of the extension or not. I'll get my pictures back. Thank you.
Mike?
Is this an extension or is the permit expired?
It's an extension.
It's an extension.
I'm sorry, I'll let
The
my,
Army Corps of Engineers permit has expired.
Okay.
They do have a grace period of 1 year on that one if work is under contract or has started. This permit has not expired yet. It would be an extension. It expires on the 18th, I believe.
Okay, so that's up to the board. I mean, whether or not you want to extend the project or not, but certainly, I've seen projects extended all the time, even when there wasn't COVID, where people just didn't have the money or couldn't line up a contractor or whatever. So it's up to you and how you want to evaluate his request, but it's nothing out of the, it just depends on how you feel about it. I mean, it's,
Do you have any concerns?
no, not for an extension, as long as he's not doing anything illegal, doing violations out there or something like that. And no.
I would just state that most of us on this board were on this site 3 years ago and saw the tracking of the dunes by whatever vehicle. I observed a sign, I presume, on the easement that says dune restoration. Is that a sign that you posted?
yes.
And on Tuesday, about 10 o'clock, I believe we were at the site, everybody here, and whereby all of the wetland vegetation was mowed down. There was more disturbance on the dunes than there was 3 years ago. My question, what did the original permit ask for? What did you ask for 3 years ago and were
We
granted?
asked to lay mats, which we thought would stay there permanently, and instead, we were told that they could not stay there permanently and that we would be getting a 3-year temporary permit with the potential, obviously, to renew. And that essentially was something that when we purchased the property back in 2018, was the complete understanding and law that we had was that we would have access rights to go behind, or sorry, not even that, to be able to follow an easement along the shoreline, ending where the 25-foot easement starts on Windfall Lane and heads east to the bay. That's not only for purposes of our putting the mats down, but it is, and again, in law, our legal rights to go in there and do rehabilitation of the riprap, to do other things that we might have to do in the future with regard to shoreline rehabilitation. And I'll just say again, if some or all of you were present when I made this application originally, and I believe I started it in January of 2019, I was at this board 3, maybe 4 times, listening to an adjoining neighbor lie, and I use that word advisedly, lie, totally misrepresented to this board about ownership rights of mine.
I'm not sure this has relevance
Well,
to your request today, sir.
The reason it's important to me is because I am not saying to this board or anyone else that I'm looking for the extension based on one element of COVID. The reality of COVID is that when we were finally set to go, COVID set in. We could not find contractors who were prepared to come in and do any of the shoreline work. Later on, it became a bigger problem in the last year because of the cost of materials.
Now, wait a minute, the permit was to lay mats down
Correct.
only.
Yes.
The mats never went down.
We didn't put the mats down because there was a concern expressed by Brian Barnes.
That's just, is that, so no mats were, nothing?
No mats were put down because we realized that when we put them down, we would be subject to the water conditions on the bay.
I understand.
And so we wanted to put them down, do the work in conjunction with the building permits, and get them out of there as quickly as we could. Finish the job.
So why the mats were to access the building site?
Yes.
So
Yes.
what's wrong with the bridge and the road?
The bridge is rated for 8 tons. You can't bring concrete over, you can't bring building materials, you can't bring large windows, air conditioning units, any of that. That was why in our deeds, it was permitted to have this right-of-way come across. We actually had to
Temporary access.
it was a temporary access permit. We have it, it's registered at the county.
And there's no reason to put that down unless you're gonna basically build what you're gonna build. So they didn't wanna make the temporary impact, without having the final, building everything at the same time.
You mean the house?
Yes.
You want to comment, Mr. Farrell, on the bridge? And
8 tons is, that's what I was told as well.
I believe you told us that day that a fire truck,
Could
a
cross.
full-size fire truck could cross?
So you're proposing to have vehicles that could handle more than 8 tons and use the beach to bring things in?
We're using those mats to displace that weight across that area. And they bring in larger, we bring track hose across those mats that are well over 8 tons.
Yeah,
So
but how wide are those going to be? You can't-
Typically, they're 8 feet. That's a typical width. Occasionally, they might grow a little bit, but almost everything that we have seen or would be using would be under 10 foot in width, so that we would have the ability to stay within those mats, which are 10 feet wide.
Seems that that would destroy the dunes right there.
This is behind the dunes, sir. What has
There's not
happened?
that much room between the swampy area and the dunes.
There actually is, we had it surveyed. Ben Stallings, who's no longer the surveyor in this area, but Ben did all of my survey work down there. And we had all of that area surveyed, and I believe Madam Chairman, that you and others had come to the site on a few occasions to locate or to identify where those white poles were at the time. Most of those at the very front were taken out with this last big storm. The board may or may not be aware or involved in it, but there was also just recently, in the last month or so, rehabilitation of the drain fields. They had been attacked by this last big storm coming in, and that took more sand out again. So these permits were intended for us to take the picture in time of what we had there, put our mats down, do our building, get the mats out, and make sure that our mitigation, our rehabilitation, was in accord with what was then visually identifiable there. And if that meant putting back some sand, that's what we would do.
The mats are a temporary impact, so there's no reason to have that temporary impact or move forward in putting in those mats until you're ready to build, because then they would become more permanent.
Ms.
And
Hall?
that's what he was trying to avoid.
So I got a question that should, well, I feel like affects the Wetlands Board. So do you have plans in place, building plans ready to go now?
We've had some plans actually issued to us for infrastructure for 2 years now.
So what time frame, if approved by the board, would we be looking at seeing at a county level?
I would hope that we would see the economy improve sufficiently. I'm already looking at building prices that have come down 60% in the last 4 months. We've gone from OSB at $100 a sheet back down to about 40. It was at 17 when this project was planned. So in a multiple, I would say to you, our plan would try to be to get these permits done in the next year or two. But
Year or two.
Olivia, could you, I'm looking at the permit that was issued back in
August 2009.
2019. Would you read general condition of this permit, 5B?
Sure. The permittee shall, to the greatest extent practical, minimize the adverse effect of the project upon adjacent properties and wetlands and upon the natural resources of the Commonwealth. Such other terms and conditions peculiarly applicable to the particular project being permitted in order to promote to the greatest extent possible the public policy expressed in the act and to minimize the impact of the project upon the rights and property of others and upon the ability of the local government to provide governmental services.
Thank you.
Y'all two have any?
Nothing further from me, ma'am.
Mike, do you have any?
I was just trying to go back and look through the application. If this is 19-0161?
19-0908.
0908.
Would you like a hard copy?
I got it here, just give me a second. 190898?
0908.
0908. What was that previous one?
I'm sorry.
So there was a previous one, the number I gave you was for a previous application that y'all denied earlier in the year, 190191?
Yeah, that would have been prior to either one of our employments here.
Looks like they were denied one time, then reapplied and got it, so. I mean, if you look at the previous application, VIMS did have some comments in that one, but y'all issued the permit before in an effort to try and protect the resource, I'm assuming, from vehicle traffic. That's why you put the mats in, was to protect what was left out there from people driving out there for construction access, so. It's up to you whether or not you feel like the mats are still warranted for him to be able to do the construction out there. So if you feel like you want to reauthorize to reauthorize the temporary matting. These aren't permanent mats, these are temporary mats. And we're talking about driving behind dunes and beaches and stuff like that. If you don't put this in, does he have the legal authority just to drive on the dunes and beaches? I don't know, but,
Really?
I don't think so, but, certainly, y'all issued a permit before. And I guess-
Does VMRC promote that?
No.
Driving on the dunes?
No, typically not. In some cases, there are some beaches that people drive on with golf carts and stuff like that, but heavy construction equipment generally not. But, so the question is, you issued a permit before. Has something changed now to where you don't want to extend the permit any further? Or, I guess I don't understand where y'all are going with this at this point.
Well, I'm going with it because the terms and conditions of the permit, it sounds like to me there's no definite plans to start this project.
Okay.
If I was the applicant, I would say, let the thing expire and refile when you're ready to go.
How long are your application, your permits are good for 3 years,
Next week, this one expires.
but it's good for 3 years?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
We also try to, if an extension is requested and based on justifiable reasons, real hard reasons, we try to match up with MRC. So when that permit's expired, they both match up.
Okay. Well, it's certainly within your prerogative. If you don't feel like issuing an extension for the project is appropriate because he's not ready to start construction, that's your justification. So that's totally your call.
Thank you. I see no reason for this board to take action today.
If I might add, my client does say he can finish
State your
the
name for the
building.
record.
He has.
Yes.
He has.
I didn't hear it.
Sorry, ma'am. I'm John Brooks with Groundwater Environmental Services. My client says he can finish the building within 2 years if he gets the extension. That will match up with VMRC's permit of 5 years. He apologizes for misstepping and trying to maintain the property and getting stuck out there. Obviously the mats would be warranted for the construction and it would obviously curtail that, that it would make it a temporary impact and he'll repair it, as he pulls the mats out, repairs will be made to the ground surface to make sure that whatever wetland vegetation is replanted or reseeded that is temporarily impacted by the mats.
So we're faced with deciding whether or not to extend the permit for 2 years?
Well, I believe we have a request for an extension.
Right.
That's what the request is, correct?
Yes, sir.
Just an extension,
For 2 years.
3,
No, he just,
We can work
Just
with 2.
2 years. Well, how do y'all feel?
I would just add that as of this morning, our website lists 41-1I and 41-1J, the 2 tax map parcels associated with this JPA, as delinquent on real estate taxes, which is a matter of public record.
I couldn't hear you, Olivia.
Sorry, I'll say it again. As of this morning, our website lists 41-1I and 41-1J, the 2 tax map parcels associated with this JPA, as delinquent on real estate taxes, and this is a matter of public record. Virginia State Code 15.2-2286 provides, prior to the initiation of an application by the owner of the subject property, the owner's agent, or any entity in which the owner holds an ownership interest greater than 50% for a special exception, special use permit, variance, rezoning, or other land disturbing permit, including building permits and erosion control permits, or prior to the issuance of final approval, the authorizing body may require the applicant to produce satisfactory evidence that any delinquent real estate taxes, nuisance charges, stormwater management utility fees, and any other charges that constitute a lien on the subject property that are owed to the locality and have been properly assessed against the subject property have been paid unless otherwise authorized by the treasurer.
ready for a motion?
Madam, if I may, one more time. My client has said that he will pay those. If you want to make those a condition of this renewal, we're fine with that.
And Mike, let me refresh my mind about any decision of this board is appealable to the commission?
I believe so, yes.
Thank you.
Are we,
Ready for a motion?
I'm just thinking, what does the law says about if the taxes are delinquent, we can or can't do?
You can issue a permit if it's delinquent taxes to the locality.
You can't.
You cannot.
Well, see,
I'm ready to make a motion.
okay?
I make a motion that this request for an extension be denied.
I'll second that.
all in favor? Can't see that. I'm sorry, but we got to follow laws, and it ain't easy. So,
Yes, sir, thank you.
Should we have tabled it?
now, he can, they can always reapply. They can always reapply. for
Certainly.
a permit, see.
At some time in the
They
future.
can always reapply.
Ready to approve minutes?
Yes.
Okay, next thing is approval of minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes of June 9th as written.
Second?
Was I here in June? Yeah, I guess I
June
was.
No.
9th.
No.
Huh? I was not here in June, so I can't vote on it.